Hello, good morning, students. I welcome you all to my online class. Students, in this class, we are going to discuss about chapter 5, that is Introduction to Euclid's Geometry. Students, before starting the chapter, let us come to our introduction part and let us see why there is a need of geometry and what is the meaning of geometry. So students, the word geometry comes from the Greek words geo means earth and metrin means to measure. So I can say that geometry is that branch of mathematics that deals with measurement of earth, so it is a special branch of mathematics that deals with what, that deals with measurement of earth or measurement of land. So the branch of mathematics was studied. It has a very, I can say that it has its origin from ancient civilizations, that is from Egypt, from Babylonia, from China, from India, from Greece, etc. The people of these civilizations faced several practical problems, so there was the need of development of geometry at that time. Okay, so from here you can understand that the geometry is a special branch of mathematics that deals with the measurement of earth, and it has its origin from ancient civilizations. So students, let us see some examples here. This example has been given in your NCRT, and let us see what the example is saying. Here it is saying that whenever the river Nile overflowed, you know that river Nile is in Egypt and it is the longest river of the world. So here it depicts that this example is showing that whenever in the past times river Nile overflowed, it wiped out the boundaries between the adjoining fields. You know that if I can say that it is like a field, so these are boundaries for the fields, and when the river flows, so it destroys the boundaries. So for this purpose, Egyptians, that people developed a number of geometric techniques and rules for calculating simple areas. So you can say that it is a situation that has been told to us that it is one of the need for the geometry. So here the river Nile overflowed. Whenever the river Nile flowed, it wiped out the boundaries between the adjoining fields of different landowners. So for this, the Egyptian developed different geometric techniques for calculating the area and finding the area and doing simple constructions. So the knowledge of geometry was also used for computing volume of granaries and for constructing canals. You know that whenever we are constructing something, we also need its dimensions. So it all comes under the category of geometry. Students, let us see some other examples here. In the first example, in the first figure, you can see that I have been provided you with a pyramid. So I can say that this pyramid is also one of the application of geometry. In the second example here, you can see that Sulabh Sutras. When you will study your NCRT text, you can see that here it was mentioned there regarding the Sulabh Sutras. So this is one of the examples of Sulabh Sutras, in which this is a method of circling the square, and in this way you can circle a square, and this is also one of the application of geometry in ancient times. So this example is of Sri Yantra. This example is of Sri Yantra, that is also mentioned in your NCRT, and that is important geometrical figure that was used in ancient times. So these are some of the examples of geometry in your real life. So students, let's move to our next slide. Let's see what it is given here. Here in this slide we are going to discuss about the Euclids. Students, as the name of the topic suggests that introduction to Euclids geometry, so you just keep it in your mind that we have to study geometry with the aspect of Euclid, or I can say that as Euclid has mentioned about the different terms of geometry, so in this chapter we are going to deal with all those concepts, but regarding the Euclid or with the point of view of Euclid. So let us see what it is written here. A Greek mathematician, Thales, a Greek mathematician, what is his name? A Greek mathematician I can see that a Greek mathematician Thales is credited with first known proof I can say that a Greek mathematician Thales, you know that mathematics is based or dependent on known proofs only. So the mathematician that has given first known proof regarding geometry was your Thales. So I can say that what was that proof? That proof was that a circle was, I can say that a circle was bisected by its diameter. A circle was bisected by its diameter, so that is cut into two equal parts. So after Thales, the most famous pupil was Pythagoras. Thales' most famous pupil, I can say that most famous student was Pythagoras, and he also has done many proofs regarding the geometry. So he and his group discovered many geometric properties and developed the theory to a great extent. This process continued till 300 BC. This process continued till 300 BC. So at that time, Euclid, whom we have to discuss in this chapter, we have to discuss about Euclid in this chapter. Euclid was a teacher of mathematics at Alexandria in Egypt. He collected all the known work and arranged in his famous treatise. What he has done, he has collected and arranged all the work of Thales, Pythagoras in a book, and he named that book as Elements. What does he name that book? He named that book as Elements. So what he has done here, he named that book as Element, and he divided the element into 13 chapters, each called a book. What each called? Each called a book. So after this, that 13 chapters, and each chapter is called a book. So these books influence the whole world's understanding of geometry for generations to come. So I can say that the what Euclid had done, he had collected all the data, all the material, all the works done by Pythagoras and other members, and arranged that particular material in his book known as Elements, and that element book has 13 chapters, and each chapter is called a book here. So students, let us move to our next slide. But before this, you can see that this is Euclid. This is Euclid, and he was born on 325 BC and died on 265 BC. So let us move to our next slide here. So in this slide, what we have given here, some definitions listed by Euclid in his book Elements. A few of them are given in your NCERT. So let us discuss these definitions one by one. So students, let's have a look here. It is written, given that a point is that which has no part. Okay, so what it is written here, it is written that a point is that which has no part. So you can say that when I'm making a point here, so you can see that it is very difficult to make that a part, but I can say that it is an appropriate modern definition of point. But according to Euclid, a point is that which has no part. Okay, so let us move to next part, that is a line is a breadthless length. What it is saying, that is say that if I am drawing a line, it doesn't have any breadth. So according to, you can say that when you will see the modern definition of line, it is somewhat different from this, but these definitions are according to whom? According to Euclid. So Euclid has defined line as a breadthless length. Okay, so the ends of a line are points. So he said that the if I am drawing a line, so its ends are what? Its ends are points. Okay, so after this, a straight line is a line which lies evenly with the points on itself. It means that according to this, it is given that when I am drawing a point on a very small distance, I can say that, so if I will draw something on this, it will become a line. So he said that a straight line is a line which lies evenly with the points on itself. So after this, let us see fifth definition that is given. It is given that a surface is that which has length and breadth only. He meant that if I have drawn this is the breadth, and I can say that this is the length. So according to him, according to Euclid, a surface is that which has length and breadth only. Now let us come to sixth part. The edges of a surface are line. As this is a surface, so he said that these edges. These are the edges. These edges are the surface of a line. So I can say that he, in its sixth definition, he said that the edges of a surface are what? The edges of a surface are lines. Okay, so let us come to this one, seventh. A plane is a surface which lies evenly with the straight on itself. He said that a plane surface is a surface which lies on the straight lines. He said that if I will draw the straight lines on a plane surface, or I will draw a straight lines in a very small distance, so after that I will get a plane surface there. What I will get? I will get a plane surface there. Now these are the definitions. These are some of the definitions that has been given by Euclid in his book Elements. He said that a point is that which has no part. He said that a line is a breadthless length. He said that the ends of a line are points. A straight line is a line which lies evenly with the points on itself. A surface is that which has length and breadth only. The edges of a surface are lines. A plane surface is a surface which lies evenly with the straight lines on itself. Students, now let us move to the next concept that is given in this chapter, that is axioms and postulates. So let us see what it is written here. Starting with his definitions, Euclid assumed certain properties which were not to be proved. Here it is written that Euclid had assumed certain properties which need not to be proved. These assumptions are actually obvious universal truths. So students, here I have told you some undefined definitions of Euclid's, right? So after that, Euclid has assumed certain properties and which were obvious. You can say that one of the property that I will tell you here, that things which are equal to the same thing are equal to one another. So I will explain you later here. So some are obvious universal truths, and he divided them into two types, that is axioms and postulates. So students, you have to keep in mind what do you mean by axiom. So axiom are common notions. I can say that notions are concepts. So axioms are common concepts which need not to be proved. So when I'm talking about axioms, so you can see that axioms are what? Universal truths. What are axioms? Axioms are universal truths that need not to be proved. जिनको प्रूफ करने की ज़रूरत नहीं होती है, that statements are known as axioms. But whom? In case of Euclids here. Okay, so Euclids have taken some properties and that are obvious universal truths, and he divided them into two types, that is axioms and postulates. So axioms are universal truth जिनको proof करने की ज़रूरत आपको नहीं पड़ेगी. I can say that nominations, we can also say that nominations as concepts. So nominations and concepts are similar. So these are common concepts which need not to be proved are called axioms. Now here the question arises, what do you understand by postulates then? So postulates are the universal truths that are related to, or the assumptions that are specific to geometry. So what do you understand? Postulate in other sense means somewhat different, but here we are talking about Euclid's geometry. So we are telling here, what does a postulate in Euclid's geometry means? So here it means the assumptions that are related to geometry only. So I think this is clear to you, that I am saying that again. I will tell you what I said. I said that Euclid has assumed certain properties which are obvious universal truths. He divided them into two parts, that is axioms and postulates. So here the axioms are the universal truths. Postulates are also the assumptions, but they are specific to geometry. So postulates are related to geometry only, but axioms are other universal truths that he has assumed. So let us see some of the Euclid's axiom that he has written in his book Elements. So let us see these axioms one by one. Students, in this chapter you have to remember all these axioms, because in this chapter these are some of the things that are important here. So let us start with this. here it is written that first, let us see first axiom what it is saying. It is saying that things which are equal to the same thing. What it is written here? It is written here that things which are equal to the same thing are equal to one another, right? So students, let me suppose this is A is equal to B and this is equal to C. So shall I write A is equal to C? Yes. Okay, so I will tell you, if there are three circles, suppose this circle is equal to this one and this circle is equal, this is first, this is second and this is third, so obviously first is equal to third, right? This is what I means. So here this axiom shows that if things which are equal to the same thing, I told you na that here if A is equal to B, I can also write it here as A is equal to B and B is equal to C. Okay, it is written that if A is equal to B, B is equal to C, then A is equal to B is equal to C, and at last A is also equals to C. What it is written? Things which are equal to the same thing are equal to one another. I hope this is clear to you. Now let's move to our second part. If equals are added to equals, the wholes are equals. Students, just think about it carefully and just listen it calmly what I am saying. Let me give you an example of an arithmetic. After that I will give you an example of this geometry. Okay, suppose here it is written that 4 is equal to 2 plus 2, right? 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, right? So if I will add 2 on both sides, if I will add 2 on both sides, but I will get 4 plus 2 is equal to 2 plus 2 plus 2, right? So at last what I will get? I will get 6 is equal to 6. Okay, I will get 6 is equal to 6. So students, let me give you one more example here. Okay, so here it is written that, let me write down here something. 2 is equal to 1 plus 1. Okay, if I will add 1 on both sides, that is 2 plus 1 is equal to 1 plus 1 plus 1. So I will get 3 is equal to 3, right? So this is the same with this assumption here, or this is the same with this axiom. It is saying that if I will add equals to equals, like 2 is equal to 2, and if I will add same thing, that is plus 1 here and plus 1 here, again I will get the same result. What I will get? I will get the same result here. This is what I have to tell you. Now let's move to our third axiom. It is the related to addition, and this axiom is related to subtraction. If equals are subtracted from equals, the remainders are equal. Again it is saying that if what I will do, I will subtract anything equal from both the equals, the remainder will also be equal. Again I will show it to you with the help of an arithmetic example. If I am saying here that let me take the same example here, that is 2 is equal to 1 plus 1, right? So if I will subtract 1 from both sides, like 2 minus 1 is equal to 1 plus 1 minus 1 here. So students, here if I will subtract 1 from both the sides, so what I will get? 2 minus 1 will be 1, and this one and this one will be cancelled, so 1 is equal to 1. So this is what this axiom is saying, that if equals are subtracted from equals, the remainders are also equal. And this I have shown you with this example. I think it's very simple, right? Now in the fourth axiom, let us see what it is saying. Things which coincide with one another are equal to one another. Here it is saying that if these are two things, let me suppose these are two circles, and if these two circles coincide, then it means these two circles are also equal. Okay, so now let us see axiom number 5. Axiom number 5 is saying that the whole is greater than the part. I think it's a universal truth. If this is a circle and this is the whole circle, and I will take this part, so obviously circle is greater than this part. Okay, obviously I can say that. If I will take, again I will take a square here, right, and I will cut one part of it here, so this part is always greater than this part, right? So this is what the axiom number 5 is saying, that whole is greater than the part. Okay, So see, let us see exam number 6 here. Things which are doubles of the same thing or equal to one another. Okay, so what it is saying, let us see what it is saying. I again told you it is similar to other exams also. So if I am writing 5 is equal to 2 plus 3, right? So I will double these both the sides. If I will double both the sides, that is 2 into 5, that is 2 into 2 plus 3. So 2 into 5, that will be 10, and 2 into 2, that is 4, 4 plus 3, so 4 plus 6, sorry. So I will get 10 is equal to 10 here. So students, very simple. It is saying, I have given you the example in the arithmetic form. You can also take the examples in geometric form, as we are reading geometry. Okay, so here in this exam 6, it is saying that things which are doubles of the same things are equal to one another. Okay, let us see exam number 7. So things which are half of the same things are also equal to one another. Obviously it is saying that if are equal to one another, suppose I have taken here as 4 is equal to 2 plus 2. So if I will take the half of both of these, that is 1 by 2 into 4, and that is 1 by 2 into 2 plus 2. So after solving, I will get 2 is equal to 2 here. So it's vice versa is also true, that the things which are half of the same thing are equal to one another. So I can also say that if 1 by 2 into 4 is equal to 1 by 2 into 2 plus 2, so this is also true. So these are the some of the exams that has been given by Euclides in his book. And in these exams, what you have to do, you have to remember all these axioms here. So there are 7 axioms that are given in your NCERT. So students, you have to keep all these axioms in your mind, because for solving the question, these axioms will help us. Okay, so let us move to our next slide, in which we are going to discuss about 5 postulates that were given by Euclides, and that has been also the part of your NCERT text. Okay, so students, let us see Euclides 5 postulate. Let us see the postulates one by one. Let me zoom this so that you can understand, or you can see it carefully. So here it is written that a straight line in, let us see the first postulate here. Okay, so first postulate, what it is saying, that a straight line which may be drawn from any one point to any other point. Okay, straight line, here it is written that a straight line may be drawn from any one point to any other point. Very simple, students. Let me take 2 points here. So if I will draw a line, I will draw any line. Obviously I have drawn it with hand, it is not straight, but I can draw it here, right? So it is given that if you have 2 points, let me take these 2 points here, so I will get again a straight line here. If I will get these 2 points here, I will get again a straight line here. So the first postulate, Euclid's first postulate, is saying that if you have this 2 points, then you can draw a straight line. Let us see what it is written here. Here it is written that this postulate tells us that at least one straight line passes through 2 distinct points. Obviously, let us see, if you have 2 points, there is only one unique line or one straight line that can pass to these 2 points. We can't say that more than one line can pass here, but yes, if these 2 lines coincide, then lines can find. But we can say that at least one straight line has been there that can pass through 2 distinct points here. So it is also mentioned here that Euclid has frequently assumed, without mentioning that there is a unique line, he has assumed that. I told you now, what are the postulates? Postulates are the obvious universal assumptions that has been assumed by Euclid, but the postulates are specific to geometry only. So here it is mentioned that there is a unique line joining 2 distinct points, but we can also prove it of, if I have 2 points here, if I will draw these, join these points, I will always get a at least one unique straight line. Okay, now let us move to the axiom that is related to this only. So let us see what is axiom 5.1 here. Here it is written that given 2 distinct points, there is a unique line that passes through them. Obviously, postulate 1 is also saying the same thing. It is saying that a straight line may be drawn from any one point to any other point, right? So here in exam 5.1 it is also mentioned that this exam is saying that if you have two distinct, here distinct means different. Okay, what does it mean? Distinct means different here. So here it means that if you have two different points, there is always a unique line that passes through them. So for this, let us see how it is proved or how it is possible. So let me show you this. Okay, I have taken 2 points here, that is P and Q. How many points are there? We have 2 points, that is, this is your point P and this is your point Q. Okay, this is your point P and this is your point Q. So you can see that if I have to join these two points with the help of a line, I have got only a one line. What I have got only a one line. But if I am talking about the number of lines that can pass through a point, that are infinite lines. How many lines are there? Infinite lines. So you can say that if you have to join two different points, there is only a unique straight line, and if you have to draw or if you have to pass the lines from single point, then there will be infinite lines. So it is also a result that you have to remember that if you are talking about a one point, so lines must be, how many lines can pass? Lines can be infinite, right? But when I'm talking about 2 points, so line, how many lines can join these 2 points? Only a unique line, only a unique single line. So students, this is your exam 5.1 that is related to the postulate 1 of Euclid's here. Students, let us see postulate number 2 here. A terminated line can be produced indefinitely. What it is written here? It is written here that we can, if we are drawing a terminated line here, that can be produced indefinitely. Now here the question arises, what do you mean by a terminated line, students? So a terminated line is that one that has ends. Okay, so here in this you can see that here point A and B are given to you, right? So point A and B are given to you, and these are the points of a line, and that line is terminated. Why? Because it has two endpoints. Okay, so here in postulate number 2 it is given that if I want to extend this, I can extend it indefinitely. This is what the postulate 2 is saying. Here the arrow shows that you can extend these lines indefinitely. Okay, so that why it is arrow here given, and this point shows that this line is a terminated line. So postulate 2, that is the assumption of Euclid, is showing that a terminated line can be produced indefinitely. Okay, let us see our assumptions or postulate 3. A circle can be drawn with any center and any radius. What it is saying? It is saying that you can draw a circle with any center and any radius. I think it is very simple, and it is clear to you that if you want to draw a circle of any radius, you can draw it. Okay, so this is postulate number 3, and after that postulate number 4 is saying that all right angles are equal to one another. Obviously, what do you mean by right angles? You know that right angle is the measure of 90 degree. Okay, so if I have a right angle here and if I have a right angle here, so obviously these two 90 degrees are equal, right? So it is saying that this postulate is saying that if I am drawing 90 degree like this and if I am drawing 90 degree like this, but these two 90 degrees will always be equal, although the shape is different, but the 90 degrees are also equal. So this is what the postulate 4 is saying, that all right angles are equal to one another. Now let us move to postulate number 5. Students, this is one of the important, I can say, that postulate, and it is somewhat I can say that different postulate as in comparison to other ones. So just listen it carefully and understand it carefully. Okay, so let us see what I'm saying. Let me do it. Okay, now here postulate number 5, let us see what it is saying. If a straight line falling on two straight lines. Okay, let us divide this postulate into 2 or 3 statements. First, just listen the statement carefully, what it is saying. if a straight line falling on two straight line makes the interior angles. I hope interior angles is clear to you, as you have read these concepts in your class 7th. Okay, so if a straight line falling on two straight lines makes the interior angles on the same side of it together. Okay, I will tell you. Let us see this with the help of this figure. Okay, what I have done, I have taken two straight lines here, right? This is what my statement is saying. Make two straight line makes the interior angle. If a straight line, obviously I must have a straight line here, right? So it is saying that if you have a straight line here and that is making two interior angles on the same side, let me draw it here only. Okay, okay, on the same side of it taken together less than two right angles. Student, I think you know the concept here, that if lines are parallel, then the sum is 180. You know that here the sum is 180, but it is particularly mentioned that here the sum of this, let me say this angle 1 and angle 2, that is the sum of angle 1 plus angle 2 is equal to less than 180. What it is saying, it is less than 180. So then the two straight lines, if I will produce these lines, I will say that these two lines can meet somewhere. What I can say, these two lines can meet somewhere. Students, okay, you can also see that, just look here in this figure. Here these are two straight lines, A, B and C, D. Okay, here another straight line, that is, let me mention this as L, let me mention this as M, and let me mention this as N. Here postulate 5 is stating that a straight line falling on two straight line, obviously N is falling on two straight lines, that is L and M here. Okay, and it is saying that making the interior angles, let me see, this is an interior angle 1 and angle 2 as two interior angles on the same side, and the sum of these angles is less than 180. Students, by looking at this figure, you can also think that if the sum is 180, then it can't be, these lines can't be like this. Okay, then if sum is 180, then situation must be like this. Okay, but here the sum is less than 180, so it must be that one line is in this way, another line in is this way. So then the two straight lines, if produced indefinitely, meet on that side. And the statement is saying that if you produce these two lines like this form and this form, these two lines will meet somewhere. Okay, these two lines will meet somewhere. Very simple. You have been given a straight line here and two straight lines, and if two interior angles are forming on the same side and the sum of these two interiors is less than 180 degree, then what will happen, then these two straight lines, if produced, will meet somewhere. These two straight lines when produced will meet somewhere, and this is the postulate number 5. Okay, so I am telling you, if the sum is 180, so situation will be like this, then your lines, then your these two lines will be parallel here, but here the sum is less than 180, that's why these two lines are not parallel and they are intersecting when produced indefinitely. After this, students, let us move to our next thing, our next concept in this chapter. So let us see here, this is given about a system of axioms. Now what do you understand by system of axioms? System of axioms is nothing, just a group of axioms. Okay, I can say that a system of axioms is called consistence if it is impossible to deduce from these axioms a statement that contradicts an axiom or previously proved statements. Don't get confused, it is very simple when I'm talking about consistent. Okay, what I'm talking about consistent, so it means that it must have a statement, उसके पास कुछ ऐसी स्टेटमेंट हो या ऐसी स्टेटमेंट नहीं होनी चाहिए, so that the previous axioms will be proven wrong. Okay, it means that the axioms that have been assumed by Euclid can't be proved wrong. If there is a statement that can prove them wrong, it means that is inconsistent system. Okay, or if the axioms are right, that system is known as consistent system. Very simple, a system of axioms is called consistent if it is impossible to deduce from these axioms a statement that contradicts axioms or previously proved statement. Again I am telling you, consistent is a system. It means a group of axioms from which it is impossible to deduce a statement such that it can prove the already proven axioms or universally accepted truth as wrong. Okay, so I can't I think that there is you can't say any statement like this that can prove axioms as wrong, because these axioms are your what? These axioms are your universal truths. Okay, so universal truths can't be proven wrong. So but if it can be proven wrong, then the system is inconsistent, and if it is right, then system is your consistent system. Okay, so let us move to our next part. Here let us come to few examples. Here it is written that if A, B and C are 3 points, you can see that A, B and C are 3 points on a line, and B lies between AC and B lies between A and C, then you have to prove that AB plus BC is equal to AC. Students, very simple. Again, let me draw a figure here. A, here it is your B, and here it is your C. But you have to remember that you have to solve these questions with the help of examples and postulates that you have done before. Okay, so students, if you see that if AB plus BC, you have to prove that what? AB plus BC here. So let us see which exam I have used here. Things which coincide with one another equal to one another. So if students, you can say that if AC is a line and I break AC into AB and BC, what I can do, I will break them into AB and BC, and if I will coincide them with AC, I will get the same result. Okay, so that's why I have used the axiom which is saying that things which coincide with one another are equal to one another here. So after this we get the result as AB plus BC is equal to AC. So students, you have to remember that in this chapter you have to prove all these questions with the help of axioms and postulates that you have done before in this chapter only. Okay, so let us move to a theorem here. A theorem is saying that two distinct lines cannot have more than one point in common. Two distinct lines cannot have more than one point in common. So students, this is the result, yeah, or I can say that this is a theorem 5.1 in this chapter. It is saying that let me tell you how it is saying that. Suppose students, let me take two intersecting lines here. Okay, what you are observing, you are observing that here is a only one point, one common point, that is suppose P. If you have these parallel lines, is there any common point? No. Okay, if you have, you can take lines in such a form, right? You can take line in such a form, but what you are observing here, you are observing here that always you are getting only a single point. Okay, you are always getting only a one point that is common to both these lines, and in this case there is no point that is common, because in parallel lines there is no point that is common to both the lines. Okay, so student, now here I told you about distinct, that means different lines. Okay, so this is the case, this is the case, and this is the case. You can see that here is the only one point that is common in both the lines. So now here we have to prove it with the help of geometrical axioms and postulates. Okay, so let us see what I am going to do here. Students, you can see that what I am going to do here, I have taken a proof with the help of contradiction. Contradiction, you mean, you understand what do you mean by contradiction? Contradiction, by contradiction I mean that in this what I have to do, I have to suppose a thing, and that is different, and that is opposite to my statement. Okay, in this I have to suppose a statement that is opposite to my statement that is given in my theorem. Okay, so here given that we have two lines here, L and M. Let me suppose I have two lines, L and M here, and I have to prove that there is only one point in common here. Okay, this is suppose this is L, and this is suppose this is M here. Okay, for the time being, let me suppose. Okay, what I have done, I have supposed that these two lines intersect in two distinct points. Okay, what I have supposed, I have supposed that these two lines, these two L and M, are intersecting at two distinct points. But students, can you think this is possible? I can't draw a figure like this in which 2 points are common, so I'm just supposing it. If I have taken this as point Q, so my supposition is saying that I have taken 2 points P and Q in which my two lines L and M are intersecting. Okay, but what? But this statement is opposite to the state axiom. Which axiom? That is axiom, I can say that axiom of first postulate, which says that there one line can pass through two distinct points. How, what it is says? It says that there is only one line pass through two distinct points, right? So students, it is opposite to my axiom, and you know that axiom can't be wrong. So the statement that I have chosen is wrong, but my axiom can't be wrong here. So I can say that my supposition is wrong and the statement that is given here is true. Now I will tell you how it is written, that how we have used this axiom. You know that if there are two lines, there are 2 points, there is only one line can pass through it. But I am supposing that there are there are 2 points and two lines are passing through these 2 points. So it can't be possible. Two straight lines can't be passed through these points. As a curved line, I can say that, but there is only a unique line that is passing through these 2 points here. So you have to remember that there is only one unique line that pass through 2 points, but I have assumed that the two intersecting lines are passing through these 2 points, or these 2 points are common in two lines, but it can't be possible. There is only a straight line that passes through two distinct points. That's why my supposition is wrong, and I have written here that the proof is true here. So just remember it. This is also a result. You have to also remember this result, that two distinct lines have only one point in common. And what do you mean by distinct here? I told you that distinct is different. I'm saying, I'm telling you all the things again and again and again. The reason is this: because you are studying it first time, and it is very important to revise all the things that we have studied earlier, because if you won't revise the things, you will forget it, and I don't want I don't want my students to forget all the things. I think, I know you will be I can say that you will be understanding the things very clearly, but I want you to understand it more clearly. That's why I am telling you or revising you again and again the things. I know you are thinking about this, that why ma'am is telling or teaching a one line again and again. The reason is this: because you have to put all these things in your mind only. Okay, so now let us move to here. Now let us come to our exercise 5.1 here. So students, just you can also do what, you can also pause the video, firstly see the questions. Okay, if you will come to the conclusion, or just write down the answers, mark down the answers on your notebook, because you have read all these statements or all the things earlier in this video only. So after that, play the video and then see that you are able to understand the concepts or not. So I will sure that you will answer the questions rightly, but this is my request to you: just pause the video and just write down the answers first, and then match the answers with the statements that I have given here, so that you can come to the conclusion that whether you have understood the concepts or not here. So students, let us see what we can do here. So here in this, let me zoom it first. Here exercise 5.1 is saying that, question number 1, which of the following statements are true and which are false? Give reasons for your answer. Okay, so let us see. Only one line can pass through a single point. Okay students, just think about it. Here a line is given, here a point is given. How many lines can let me write down a point here. How many lines can pass through it? I think I told you that infinite lines can pass through a single point. So here this is your false. And what is the reason here? Infinite lines can pass through a single point. Okay, now let's move to our second part. There are an infinite number of lines which can pass through two distinct points. Just remember students what I told you. I told you that if you have 2 points, there is only how many lines can pass through it? There is only one unique line that can pass through it. So it is also false. And this is the axiom of the postulate that is given to you, that there is only one line can pass through two distinct points. Okay, so this is also the false statement. Now let us see third. A terminated line can be produced indefinitely on both the sides. So think about it. Yes, this is the axiom, or sorry, this is the postulate number 2, that is saying that if you have a terminated line here, so you can produce it somewhere. आप इसको क्या कर सकते हैं, produce कर सकते हैं. So this result will be true here. Okay, so now let us move to our statement number 4, that it is saying that if two circles are equal, then the radii are equal. Obviously students, if you just think about it here, कि अगर if you have two circles that have radius, suppose 1 centimeter and 1 centimeter, so obviously the circles will always be equal. If and only if they are equal, then the radii are equal. Okay, so otherwise if the radii are not equal, they can't be equal. So yes, we have written that. I told you na, two circles of equal area will have the same radius. Okay, obviously if one circle has same area to the other, then the radii will always be equal. So this statement is true here. Now let us see the next statement, what it is saying. It is saying that in the figure, if AB is equal to PQ, it is saying that in the figure, if AB is equal to PQ, let us see what it is saying. If AB is equal to PQ, this is equal to this Q, and PQ is equal to XY, then AB is equal to XY. Yes, it is true, and it is the axiom. Which axiom it is? What is saying that the things which are equal to the same thing are equal to one another. So students, I hope you have learnt all the concept very well. So you just pause the video and write down all the things, and after that just match it with me whether the things that you have written is correct or not. Okay, so let us see our question number 2. Let us see what it is saying. So before doing this, let me okay, let me move to our next slide. So question number 2. Okay, let me see what it is written here. Give a definition for each of the following. Give a definition. Give a definition for each of the following terms. Are there other terms that need to be defined first? What are they and how might you define them? Here some definitions are given to you. So students, let us see question number 2. Now it is saying that let us see definition first, what it is given. It has given the definition of parallel lines. So students, I hope you know what parallel lines are, right? So parallel lines are the lines or the straight lines like this which have no point in common. You can see that these have 2.2 lines here and they doesn't have any point in common. So it is one of the important definition of parallel lines. You can also define parallel lines in this way, which is saying that two straight lines which don't have any point in common, which have no point in common, are known as parallel lines. So obviously what I have done here into, I can say that in parallel lines, yes, let me write it here. Okay, let me take this as this. So here two straight lines. Okay, so before discussing parallel lines, you must know that what is a straight line and what is a point here. That's why we have written the definition of point in straight line also here. So point in straight line, a point is that which has no part. Okay, it is the definition according to what? According to whom? This is the definition of point according to Euclid. And a line, what a line is a breadth length. It is also a definition of what? Definition of whom? Euclid's. And straight line is a line which lies evenly with the points on itself. So students, it's very simple. Two parallel lines are those lines which have no point in common, and before understanding about the parallel lines, you must have the concept about straight lines and points. So that's why the definition of both these things have been given to you. Now let us move to our third yes, second point, that is perpendicular lines. So if one among two parallel lines is turned by 90 degree, let me draw a perpendicular line here. Somewhat it is like this. One line is 90 degree, another is a straight line. So when these two lines meet at 90 degree angle, and then these two lines are known as perpendicular lines. If one among two parallel lines is turned by 90 degree, the two lines become perpendicular to each other. Parallel lines has been defined before. Rotation through 90 degree needs further defining. Rotation Okay, it is very simple. You can also write down the definition in your way also. I have just written these definitions because it is somewhat very detailed definitions that I have written here. So here it is written that if you have two parallel lines here, and if your parallel lines is turned here or rotated here with 90 degree, these two lines will be your parallel lines here. Very simple. And parallel lines you have defined in the first part here. This is what I have written. And rotation, I think you know that. What do you understand by rotation? Now let's move to our part number 3. In part number 3, what you have to do, you have to define a line segment here, a line with two endpoints here. These are two endpoints and this is a line. So a line segment, a line with two endpoints is a line segment. And you know that you have defined line and point before. We are defining these small definitions because here in the question it is given that you have to define the other terms also that are useful in this definition. So radius of a circle here, radius of a circle. Okay, obviously I think you all know what do you understand by radius. So if you have a circle here, then this is the center. So any line segment joining the center and any point on the circle is known as radius of the circle. Very simple, right? So again, here the 2 points, the two definitions that you have to know, or that you have to understand our center of the circle. So center may be defined as a point inside the circle which is that same distance from all the points. Okay, if you have a center here, so if you calculate the distance from any point with the center, you will always get the same distance. So the definition of center of any circle here is that center may be defined as a point inside the circle which is that the same distance from all points on the circle here. So students, now let us move to our next question, that is here it is one definition also given, that is square here. So here what do you understand by square? So square, a quadrilateral with all sides equal and all angles equal is a square. You know that a square is a four-sided figure in which all sides are equal and all angles are equal to 90 degree here. So quadrilateral, you know what a quadrilateral is? Yes, a quadrilateral is a four-sided figure, right? So figure, side and angle must be known to you. Okay, so with this your question number 2 will be completed. Now let's move to question number 3 here. So here the question number 3 is saying that you have to consider the two postulates given below. These are also the some postulate that is given here. So given any two distinct points A and B, there exists a third point C which is in between A and B. Here it is written that you have been given 2 points A and B, A and this is B, and here is a point that is C here. Okay, which is in between A and C. And second axiom is saying that that is and second one is saying that there exist at least 3 points that are not on the same line. Okay, what second one is saying? Second one is saying that you have, first one is saying that you have been given 2 points and 1 point is here only. Okay, so it is like this, you have been given 2 points A, B and C is in between. And second is saying that there exist 3 points that are not on the same line. There are 3 points, suppose these are the 3 points that are not on the same line. Now what the question is saying, it is saying that do these postulates contain any undefined term? You have to answer this, whether these point contains any undefined terms or these postulates consistent. I told you about consistent system of exams now. So you have to also tell that these postulates are consistent or not, or you have to also answer this, whether do they follow, whether they follow from equivalence postulates or not. Okay, here these are the two statements that are given to you. I'm also providing you with the PDF of the questions and also providing you with the text of the NCERT, so you can also see the question carefully there and answer these questions. This is very simple. Two statements are given to you there and you have answered, you have asked to answer these questions, that if there are two distinct point and third point is there, so one statement is this and second statement is this, that there are at least 3 points that are not on the same line. So here the question is asking that whether these postulates have undefined terms. Okay, Students, I have told you 7 undefined terms in the video earlier, right? So we can say that in between A and B remains an undefined term which appeals to our geometric intuition. The postulates are consistent. Why consistent? Because I told you from these postulates it is impossible to deduce any axiom that is contradictory or that is opposite to the axiom that had been given by Euclid. Okay, so yes, the postulates are consistent here. Okay, now they do not contradict each other. Why they do not contradict each other? Because these are somewhat different statements. These are different statements, they don't have any connection between the two. That's why these they are not contradict, that's why they are different. And I can say that both of the postulates do not follow from Euclid's postulates. Have you read any Euclid's postulate that is showing these statements? No, we have not read any Euclid postulate. That's why I can say that these postulates do not follow from Euclid's postulates here. I can say that however they follow from the Euclid's axiom, but yes, they have Euclid axiom here. And which axiom is here? Which says that two distinct points have a unique line that passes through them. Okay, which we can say that these do not follow from Euclid's postulate, but yes, these follow from Euclid axiom, which says that two distinct points have what? Two distinct points have one unique line. The point lies. Okay, now second is saying that if there are 3 points that can't be on a straight line, so if there are only 2 points, they are always be connected by a straight line. Therefore they have to be at least 3 points from one of them not to fall on the straight line. Now this statement is or this proof is regarding the second axiom or the second postulate that is given to you in the question. It is saying that if there are 2 points, you know that these 2 points can also be connected by a straight line. So if there are 3 points, then they must lie between two different straight lines. So yes, these axiom follow Euclid's these postulates, the postulates that have been given in the question follow Euclid's axiom, but they do not follow Euclid's postulate, and they are consistent in nature. What they are consistent system of axioms. Okay, now let us see question number 4 here. Let us see what the question number 4 is saying. It is also very simple. If a point C lies between A and B such that AC is equal to BC. Very simple. Here it is given to you that ABC is a line segment, AC is a point between these 2 points AB, and it is also mentioned that AC is equal to BC. It means if AC is equal to BC, it means that C is the midpoint of AB here. Okay, so what I can do here, if AC is equal to BC, so I can also add AC and AC on both sides. Why I have added AC and AC on both sides? Students, you can see that here we have used an axiom which says that equals are added to equals. What it says that? It says that equals are added to equals. So I know that AC is equal to BC. So here AC and AC will be twice AC, and BC and AC will be, this is AC and this is BC, and their sum will be AB. So twice AC is equal to AB and AC is equal to 1 by 2 AB. Very simple. So what you have to do, you just have to add the similar term on both the sides, because you know that if equals are added to equals, the wholes are always equal, and by solving this you will get the result here. Okay, so let us move to question number 5 here. Now what question is saying, in question 4, point C is called a midpoint of line segment. Yes, I told you if AC is equal to BC, it means C is the midpoint of AB, right? So here yes, like this, if A this is your B, so if C is this, so C is the midpoint of AB. Why? Because AC is equal to BC here. Now the question is saying that you have to prove that every line segment has one and only one midpoint. Obviously we know that there is only one point that divides the line into two equal parts, but we have to prove it. So how we are going to do it? Prove it. What we have proved, I have assumed that there is another point D. Suppose there is another point D that is the midpoint of let me write it again. Okay, so here a point here A, and this is your B, and this is your C. Okay, so here I have taken another point D that is the midpoint of this AB. Okay, so if C is the midpoint of AB, then AC is equal to 1 by AB, right? And if D is the midpoint of AB, then AD is equal to 1 by 2 AB. So you can see that AC is equal to 1 by 2 AB, AD is equal to 1 by 2 AB. So AC and AD is equal to equal. Now AC and AD is equal, but students, by this you can't say that AC and AD are equal, because AC is smaller and AD is somewhat larger. So this is possible only when C coincides with D. It means when C and D are the only one point, that at that time it is possible. Suppose this is A and this is B. So if C and D on the same are the same points, then it is possible that AC is equal to AD here. So therefore C is the unique midpoint. That's what we have proved here. Okay, this question is also very simple.